Hello everyone. Our storyline is based on the professionalism of journalists and the whole media world in Ukraine. The first point we want to say that I have this written on my phone. Every sphere of human activity should have their own specialized media. I mean, sport, music, or politics, because we have too much media, magazines, newspapers that they do not have their theme. They're just news or something. And in our opinion, we think that media should be divided on themes because we have too much media, and they all are they are duplicating themselves, and we do not have any new things in our media world for a long time. Who wants to continue?
I'm continuing. We have a big problem that the journalist is very spread in everywhere. They know everything and don't know anything. So we want to have a journalist who work in a specific sphere, like a niche. One moment. And because people will trust him, will trust in the professionalism, in the competence, yeah. And it also depends on situation in our country. So maybe Natalia.
Yes, and last but not least, our media, we hope so, will be independent. In 5 years, independent, I mean when owners don't have any touch to politics and how it could be happen. Maybe I think our people would be more, how it's called, educated and self-conscious, just not to choose the media with such connections and not to buy them, not to buy the information from them, not read them, and they will die. So it will left only independent and professional and niche media.
And we want to add that the coolest media of our country are digital, and we want to in ideal way in the future. I want to see our media in a printed way, because maybe it will be like more status and cool to read the paper things, because digital is maybe is more widest, but you can't touch the news, and I mean the printed media. Maybe they will be more status for the humans. Thank you.
I wanted to add about educational reform in our university connected with journalism, because we have many directions of journalism, for example, art journalism, political law journalism, but it doesn't work. And maybe if some faculty, for example, a history faculty, economical faculty, have additional course, economic journalism in yes, economical faculty have economical journalist. Maybe this specialist will be more professional than like a journalist, but in different ways. So that's all.
Cool, thank you. When you described, like, what you described is trends, in a way, right? Important trend, and based on those trends, you would probably also see opportunities. You pointed towards some of the opportunities. Remember, all of you, and sorry for not giving all of you. We could build upon this for a long time. And how would we do that? Because when you build a scenario, you could start like we have done, like based on what we know, some assumptions. But then we need to test the assumptions. We need to talk with people that really know what they're talking about. And that could be a broad set of people that have kind of the knowledge that we need in order to build not a strategy, but the scenario. And this is something that is actually useful to use time, and you could do it again and again and again, and you could do this as a part of how the organization runs. Invite people from other industries, could be competitors, could be thought leaders, every month. New people, give them 1 hour, and invite other people in the organization that might find that useful, just to kind of get ever-growing idea of what's going on, how the future actually will look like, because then it's much easier to build a strategy upon it. But I would like to move on, because it's not that easy. I've said several times that change is hard, so I would like to... no, this is the wrong way. Oh, that way. Makes sense. Okay, change can cause a slow and painful death. This is just bits from a talk I had many years ago. Preparing for this, I found it and I thought, forgot about this, but I liked it. And bits and pieces with stuff I would like to show you guys. So basically, interesting thing about change is, like, when we discuss the media reality, we tend to describe it as revolutions. It's like, it's a digital revolution, it's a social media revolution, it's revolution this, revolution that. And the reason why we call it a revolution is because it turns everything upside down, in a way. And so when people like me, because I've been talking about changes all my career, I went to all over the world, holding like, oh, you need to prepare for this stuff happening. And we present it like revolutions. But the problem with change is that this is not the best way to present or illustrate change. This is a much better way to illustrate change. Some years ago, I don't know if you have this snail here, but this is a snail that didn't belong in the Norwegian ecosystem. And I remember when it was talks about this, they call it a killer snail because it eats everything in your garden. And I read articles about it. There were lots of talk about this snail that were coming, and now it was in South Germany. And it was like, okay, it's a snail coming and it's in South Germany. It doesn't really sound like something we need to act on right now. And they call it the killer snail attack. And when you are attacked by a snail, it's not like you feel it's not like your adrenaline is pumping through your veins and all your instincts helps you to kind of protect yourself. It's more like, yeah, it's a snail coming.
But if it would be like this size,
Yeah, then if you meet it and it's kind of that size, you will probably have some adrenaline pumping. My point is that this is also very much true to all the change that we are exposed to. It's like we hear about it, we know that it will impact our business, our way to earn money, our ability to survive as an organization. But again, it feels like we have all the time in the world to prepare for that. So we can do it tomorrow, or we can do it next year, or we could push the costs of change and the hardship of change. We can push that into the future, and that is basically what is one of the huge problems when it comes to handling change, is to get people to understand that we need to change now, we need to prepare now, even though the snail is in Germany. Because those snails, they were suddenly here, at least in my garden. I think they hitchhiked with a lorry or something, and suddenly they were there, much faster than expected. And they were totally unprepared, of course. So, but change is good. Basically, not always. For this guy, change wasn't so good. But I think in a way we need to think about change as something that is good, something we want to embrace, and something we need to learn our colleagues to embrace and to really think is good. Because if we manage to onboard our organization into this thought that we need to change constantly, then that's a way of living, it's a way of thinking, it's a way we can we just do that as a way we do everything. This is Schibsted, the media company I was working for in 2 different companies for several years. They were growing a lot. Basically, they came from newspaper, but they ended up, and they still heavily invested in newspapers, but they saw something really early too, and that was that one of the main income for a newspaper in 1990s was what do you call it? The small ads in English.
context.
No, you know, if you wanted to sell your car.
Teaser?
Huh?
Teaser?
Commercials?
They call it.
Like 5 seconds at YouTube?
Yeah, in a newspaper, like small ads.
Classified.
Classifieds. Thank you. Thank you. Classified was actually the main income source for most newspapers. What they saw is classified will be killed by some online competitors. So they started to think, okay, what do we do with that? Our main income from the newspaper come from classified. We know that if we are not moving classified onto online, someone else will grab it and we will die. And this is exactly what happened in the US. In the US, the newspaper didn't do anything. They didn't prepare for the online, and then suddenly you had this huge. They are still going strong. I tend to forget names. Never mind. They are huge and classified. They basically, within 5 years, they took 90% of the revenue from the newspapers, and by doing that, they also were basically responsible for newspapers' need to cut back in the newsroom. Schibsted had another approach. They started a separate division called Finn, which is Norwegian for find it. They went online, they went all in, and they did that even knowing that doing that they were slowly killing the newspaper part of that business. But in a way, by doing that, they saw that they could control it, they would have the revenue, and they could put that revenue into the media companies if they needed. So it was like as a strategy, it was a much better way to behave. And this idea of ruining your own business, if you see that that is something other people will do to you, is hard. Schibsted, they made it into a part of the culture. So when I was working in VG, the newspaper, the #1 newspaper in Norway, this was our guiding star when we worked with our products. We said, if we can see any way to disrupt our products, we will do it before our competitors do it, even though we will tear down what we have. And this is so hard to do. If you have $100 million business, and you see that if you shift it like this, and you apply this new business model, then suddenly you will tear down 100 million in revenues. It's so hard to do it. But we knew that if we can see this as an opportunity, other people will do it. If we are not the first movers here, other people will do it. Let's do it. So we did it. And the benefit of doing it is that you are in control. So you still keep the ability to actually grow and to find new ways to earn money on the position you have. This is all the numbers, of course. There you can see this was from 2011. But Schibsted managed to actually do something media companies even struggle with today, to shift the revenue from traditional media, print media, to digital media. And they were very, very successful doing this. One of the reasons why we did it, it's like VG was 70% of the profit from online operations. We were #1 online news service in Norway. We were #1 on mobile, and we were #1 on web TV, even though we didn't have any web TV when we started this a couple of years before. I think I will tell you more about that, but what we did, we started early. We saw that this is happening, let's do it. And when we do it, let's do it properly, let's investigate into this, let's put resources into this, let's try, let's fail. And that's so important when it comes to this. When you do media development and media strategy, you just need to be willing to fail. And if I'm forced to pinpoint one personal trait that you guys need, it's to be brave.
Not to be afraid.
Yeah, not to be afraid of failure, and not to be afraid of sticking out your head and tell something that is completely opposite of what the other sheep say. Because the industry is going in one direction and everybody is following after them, and if I see something that you guys don't see, you have to be brave to actually stick your head up and speak your thing. We stayed in strategy, and this is kind of a bit opposite of what I told you, because I told you should change strategy. But this is also something, if you see something, and what we saw is that we need to take these positions digitally. Nothing happened that changed that, and then we just stayed in it, even though it was hard. But stuff being hard is not a reason to turn. It's stuff being wrong. That is a good reason to turn around. And sometimes it can be really, really hard to see the difference between hard, or difficult to see the difference between hard and not working or being wrong. But that's normally possible. We saw that in order to win these positions, we need to do stuff differently. And we also saw that much of what we needed to do digitally would be a huge problem for the printed edition. So in order to cope with that, we started a separate organization. VG established VG.net as a separate organization, a separate budget, their own people. They were free to do whatever they wanted. If they decided to do stuff that would kind of be a problem for the printed edition, they were allowed to do that. And that was one of the key factors that made it into a huge success. Because if you try to do innovation inside an established organization, you're in deep trouble. It's really, really hard. And I know for sure, because I've tried so many times. It's like you have this tiny little thing that you all know will be a big thing, but now it's just a tiny little thing, and then they say, oh, I need these resources to do this stuff. I need 20% of the IT engineers to do my programming. I need this kind of resources. Then we will always be met with, oh, you can't get that because what we are doing is 80% of the revenue and we need it to secure our position. And then you're lost. So in a way, to separate stuff into, you could keep it in a corner, you could keep it inside the building, but it have to have the freedom to move, have to have the freedom to decide its own resources and what's necessary. Then we focused on innovation and how we could redefine digital news. This was back in earlier than 2011, because this was basically after the fact. So this was a process that was started like in 2000. And back then, people didn't really know how should you build an audience digitally, how can you build a good product. So we focused on how would the product actually look like, what's needs out there, how can we deliver on those needs. So this organization, this tiny organization that was growing year by year, they were actually allowed to go year after year without producing any revenue of substance for the first year. The main thing was to learn, build an audience, build a platform for the future. And they did. Then focusing on involvement of the readers. How can we involve? Because online is an interactive platform. How can we use that? How can the fact that people can be involved, how can that help us to redefine journalism and redefine how we actually work with journalism and create our products? And the last word is not said, because lots of stuff that is undone in this area. Actually, what I've seen is seems like people are going back to bad habits, because now most of the media houses I know of have merged when they split. They were growing, but after a while, the digital become even bigger than the traditional one, and then they merged it. And when they did that, most of the innovation, in my eyes, seems to be lost. But they involved in discussions, in blogs, in comments, in social integration, in the thinking that when you publish any news article, that's not when the work is done. That's when a news article is born. And then you need to keep working with it, because when you publish something, that is the time when people will interact with you. They will send you more data, they will send you corrections, they will send you suggestions, they will send you tips, and then together with the audience you can actually make this grow into an even bigger and better news case. And then for us it was important to control our own content. Yeah.
Can you please explain this point, news leads from the audience? Would that mean
tips, news tips. So you get a tip, so you start digging, and very often those tips come when you publish something. I can give you an example of something I mentioned yesterday as an example of how can you rethink the products. And this is something I've come to think of because I'm from the TV industry, and in the TV industry we know one thing for sure. If you want the audience to your program, you need to promote it. You need to push promos so you give the audience a reason to visit you in the future. So when you have people watching a program, you tell them why they should come back tomorrow or in 2 hours or next week. You give them kind of hooks so that they know why they should go back. Take a look at newspapers. Do they do that? Not at all. A typical newspaper, even online, is a library. It points backwards in time. It points to stuff that happened in the past. Yeah?
Yeah, because, you know, so for example, if we are taking a TV show, so it can take like this moment of what you like see in the next episode, and like you put in like the short intros of the what would be in the next episode, right? But how can newspaper make it like read in the next newspaper news about like does it make sense? Like
oh, so you're saying it doesn't make sense?
Yeah, exactly. Like this, you can't predict the news. So how can newspaper make
I disagree.
You disagree that we cannot predict news?
You can't predict the news, but you can make the news, and most newspaper kind of set the news agenda. And what you can do, you can work in another way. So, typical example, what do a newspaper do early morning? They have a meeting. Like in the editorial staff and journalists, they meet and they plan the day. Okay, we will have this news conference, this stuff will happen, we will follow up on this lead. So they know basically what they will be working with, and then there will be kind of an accident or something new coming up, so that they will act on it. But even though they know 80% of what they will be doing that day, do they tell anyone? They don't. It's a black box, it's secret. And why is it secret? It's secret because it used to be secret 100 years ago. Because you sold your papers through headlines in the newsstand. And because that was the main selling point for any newspaper that were kind of single paper sold in newspapers, it was very important to keep kind of what you were working for secret. Because if it was not secret, other news organizations will pick on the thing, and you might even not be the first one to publish the thing. That's not the case anymore. You can't keep anything secret. You have it's an idea that is in most cases almost absurd, but still we behave as that is true. So my example here is, why not open up the planning meeting? Why not have it broadcast like a webcast? Why not invite the readers? Why not say, oh, we are going to this news conference. We are going to this press release stuff. Do you want to, what should we ask? Do you have questions? Do you have tips? Do you have anything you want to interact with? And then you could build, and you could point forward, and you could say, hey, if you feel that this is interesting, come back in 1 hour, because then I've been there and I've posted my thing. And then you suddenly give people reason to come back. This is just basically another way to think, and I use this more as an example of how this industry are thinking kind of very old-fashioned. We are not using the technology as it should be used. We are not willing to rethink how we work. Do you disagree? you're falling asleep, so you might disagree. Never mind. This was just a number. You can see BG's position. We were kind of almost twice as big as the next one. So what we did actually paid off. It really paid off. And other people were copying us. And they were struggling to be as innovative as we were because they were kind of focusing on what we were doing as we knew how to do it. We didn't. We just learned along the way. I say we. Of course, I didn't come up with any of this shit. They did. I was just a lucky guy being able to be there and to learn by great people. This is a circulation. This is, of course, a disaster. So we knew that it was quite easy to extrapolate, and we knew pretty well how pricing will affect the circulation. We knew that if we increased prices 10%, then the circulation would drop even harder. We knew kind of everything there, so we were able to say pretty much correctly when the circulation would drop under 100,000 copies, which was like when you're under 100,000 copies, then you could still make a profit, but it's hard to make an impact. So we knew that we had not that much time to rebuild the whole organization, how we worked, how we earn our money, into something else. And we also knew some stuff. We knew that ad revenues would probably drop because there are so many page views produced by other competitors like Google and Facebook, and it's hard to tell an advertiser why they should pay 10 times as much for a newspaper user than a Google user. So there is a need to reinvent the media industry. This was true in 2011, it's true today. It's even more true today, probably. But we are not alone. Like, most industries need to reinvent themselves these days, but maybe not as critical as the media industry, because we are really, really struggling. And what I've seen is that many organizations, they do not really try to reinvent themselves. They try to come up with kind of something that will save the day. Some great new revenue, some great new product, so that they don't need to change as much because suddenly they have this new revenue stream. And the problem, of course, for many organizations is that it's hard to turn around. It's hard to you have so much baggage and luggage and load on your organization. You have so much momentum in a certain direction, so that it's hard to shift a direction. And then also something I learned, of course, is the most important part of successful change. What's the most important thing if you want to change? Maybe it's a stupid thing to ask you, but I think good questions are really, really important. The ability to constantly ask good questions. And if you have people, it's nothing more annoying than people that constantly ask questions about stuff. But that's the most valuable people in your organization, for sure. They tend to be critical, and that's why they are so annoying. But the ability to question stuff that other people think is true is just so valuable. And if we can learn how to develop that, we will be much better off. And one of the things that we really need to watch out for is all the beliefs that we will find in our industry. Everything that we feel is true but never questioned. And I have met with those beliefs again and again and again. And it's not like, and then it's basically back to the sheeps again. They never question the direction, they never question why they're moving in that direction. Because they're kind of happy with the stuff that everybody thinks is true. I don't know, are you able to come up with some examples of stuff that maybe is not that true? I can give you some first and then maybe you can come up with something. Because I have seen lots of beliefs in my colleagues when it comes to the Ukrainian media. And I say, is that really true? What you're saying there is really true? Yeah. I'm not so sure. More often than not, I think often what we believe is true, but very often it's not tested, it's not validated, and it might be critically wrong. And when you base your strategy and your decision on something that is not really true, but just a belief, a common shared belief, then you are in trouble. And the thing is, and this is something that you guys, some of you maybe dive into psychology and that kind of stuff. I don't, but I would like to know the answer for this, because if you have really bright people and you put many bright people into the same room, they are able to come up with lots of crazy stuff somehow. So the fact that the industry consists of lots of bright people is no guarantee that their beliefs is right. Often it's the opposite, strangely enough. This is a typical example. I have many examples, I think, if I'm pressed. In 1999, the industry belief was users will never pay for anything online. Never. You can just forget about asking people for anything paid online. Everything is free. Internet is free. It's actually a universal law of nature. It's meant by God to be free. It should be free and stuff like that. And especially not dating. Dating is a free service. It's meant to be free. Never going to happen that people will pay for dating. And this was kind of true. And then VG launched a paid dating service. And it was a success. It was an immediate success. There was lots of free online dating services out there, but we launched a paid one, and it was a great success. So, what was it? Learning. And this is another thing. Sometimes, and not only sometimes, but quite often, when people are presented with something that proves that you're wrong, they are not treating the facts as a proof of them being wrong. They are treating it as an exception, the only exception. So the learning was online user will only pay for dating. That was a new, and this was true for many years. In 2005, then we successfully launched online weight reduction club. And it was a huge success. Actually, it was a much bigger success than the dating. It was like a really sustainable, important revenue stream for VG at that time. So the new revised industry belief in Norway, there was that the online user will only pay for dating and weight reduction. So it was just another example of the fact being a fact still, but now with two exceptions. So the only natural thing to do here is to say, okay, this is something we need to act on. We have several, and there was other kind of clues out there that people were actually willing to pay for quality, and that payment in itself actually is something that make value into a service. In 2007 we had the belief online user will never ever going to pay for online content. Editorial content will never be paid for. I actually spent 5 of my, I wouldn't call it the best year, but 5 years of my life fighting inside the Shifted organization to make them realize that what we were doing was killing the business. Because we were giving away our best content for free, and we did it in a way that undermined our paid paper products. And it was so hard, because everybody said, yeah, but it's a fact. People will never pay for journalism online. Never, it's a fact. But it wasn't a fact, it was a shared belief in the industry. And sometimes it can be hard to convince your own people than it actually is to sell it to other people. Often. Of course in 2011 VG reluctantly launched VG+. Today they have 250,000 paying customers on their paid subscription online product. Actually, it's something that is quite a bit in a country with 5 million people. So this is just some example of kind of, we have beliefs and shared beliefs and we treat it as facts, and we are basing much of our thinking on those facts. So a challenge for you guys, can you come up with any beliefs that you have that you believe is true but might not be? Yeah, let me try another way. Come up with a fact about the Ukrainian media industry.
We will not have some channels in internet that will have to pay for using Ukrainian channels, I think.
You will not pay for Ukrainian channel online? Why?
Because it's not forward for Ukraine. There is a big pirate market in our country.
But it was true in whole Europe, in the whole world, that people were never going to pay for online music. That was like a truism, and it was a huge industry of pirating music. It was a... do you subscribe to Netflix? But some of you do. Some of you do. It's 6-7 years ago. It was a truism that people will never pay for movies online because it's so easy to find it. It's still easy to find, but people pay for easy access. They pay in order to not be forced to be thieves. They pay for the safety, the convenience, the brand. And no commercials, yeah. And the convenience. So what you are saying is exactly the same that we said 7 years ago about Netflix and HBO and everything. And all my colleagues in Ukraine say the same thing. People are not willing to pay for online media products in Ukraine. I'm so certain that it is wrong. If it's true, it's just because you haven't come up with something that people are willing to pay for. And if you can find that, you just need to tap into needs. And I think several of the groups here discussed needs that will definitely be opportunities for someone to create something. Another thing that I heard here in the office and yesterday when I was interviewed is people never trust media. Is that true?
Mostly.
Yeah. Why?
Because everybody lies
Every
now in the media.
Okay.
Every media is harder.
So there is opportunity there, right? Because I think people want to trust someone.
It's easier.
But trust is earned. So let's say that you build a media that people trust. But in order to get there, you need to earn it, and because there is so much distrust out there, you probably need to work harder for that trust than I would need to do in Norway, but I think it's definitely possible to earn trust.
That's why we need independent media. What few of the groups said before.
Yeah, sure. And you can only, and if you do that and start on that journey, you need to be very, very careful about what you communicate, how transparent you are, and you need to earn and build that trust. And I'm so sure that's possible, but it's as long as it's kept like a belief that this is not possible, it's not going to happen, then it's not going to happen. It's like payment in Norway. It was postponed it was introduced 10 years too late, just because people didn't believe it was going to work. But when it was introduced, it instantly worked. So the problem, what do you believe? I got some questions or answer for that. I told a little bit about digital storytelling. We are not that good at storytelling internally. We are a little bit better when it comes to storytelling outside. I think also when it comes to our products, we need to, and this is probably something I would like to work with you tomorrow, on how to build a media product. Because a media product is not just the journalism. It's not just a product, it's everything around it.
You're talking about brand?
Brand is one issue, but I think you need a more kind of a larger thinking about what a media product actually is. If you want to break through, you need to, again, understand the needs, and you need to see how can we cater to those needs. And those needs will probably be more than just reading content or having access to videos. It will probably be much more. But when it comes to what we do online, and this is also kind of related to change, because this stuff over there, this is a typical, actually a regional newspaper.
Like negative.
With a lot of advertising.
Yeah, sure, lots of advertising.
A lot of different colors.
Yeah, this is just what people are used to. I guess this screenshot is a couple of years old, but anyway, it looks like this still. The black is to indicate that this is urgent, this is happening now, this is breaking news. Other articles will typically be black on white. But the thing is, what is it? It's a digital version of this, and this is a typical problem when it comes to innovation. We tend to just do the same thing, but I probably see all of you have seen the example of the first early cars, right? They looked like horse carriages, and basically this is when we do our online products. We are still building horse carriages mainly. And this is kind of the evolution from 1999 to 2012 for TV2. I didn't see any reason to do it further because nothing had happened. Basically, nothing has happened since TV2 was introduced online in 1999. Even though it's extremely much that has happened online. And the interesting thing is, do any of you do online gaming?
I used to.
You used to? Wow, you must be the cream of the Ukrainian youth. Like, we keep ourselves a product like that. At the same time, young people are killing each other online in real time in 3D, high definition, with a really immersive experience. So that's the media experience they have, and then they go back to the Stone Age to read news. Of course you could do better. We could do much better, probably, if we really dive into it and learn more about how we could present our content. So we do paper online. And then the challenge is to be relevant, because we are losing young people. The media industry is losing young people. In 20 years ago, that was not a problem, because young people, when they grew up, they just fall into our habits. So you were young and you didn't care, and then you grew up, and then you started to adopt your parents' media habits, basically. I'm pretty sure you're aware of this. What's happening now is the opposite. Old people like me, we adopt our user habits from our kids. Must be the first time in the history that the world is kind of inverted and flipped upside down. That is quite interesting, because that means that we actually have a laboratorium that we can learn from. When we study how young people actually interact, how they use media, how they keep themselves informed, we can learn very much about how older people like me will behave 5 years down the road, probably. So the kids were the first to use the internet, of course. They were the first to use mobile. They were the first to use social media. They, of course, moved forward into Messenger and Snapchat and all those. And it's not stopping there. It will continue to evolve. And we need to continue to follow up, to follow them, and to study and learn and experiment. How many Ukrainian news sites are using Messenger as a channel?
News. News
Can you repeat your question?
Yes. How many Ukrainian news media houses are using Messenger as a channel for news? Messenger.
In the
like
last
Telegram.
1 year or two,
Hmm?
in the last 1 year or two, really.
Many? Cool.
Mostly they use Telegram. If they use
Yeah, because that's more popular. But they use it. But in Norway it's just 1 or 2.
Oh,
Yeah. So you are in front of us there. How many use Snapchat as a channel?
it's not so bad.
Yeah.
It's not that popular because of Instagram stories. Actually, Instagram stole the idea of Snapchat, which is kind of a...
Yeah, I know, but even for young people.
In Ukraine, it's not
No,
really
Snapchat
popular.
is
In
just
Europe.
for
English people, Americans, yes.
Yeah, and Norwegians and Scandinavians and yeah. But
Media now try to start using Facebook stories also, but
Yeah.
not Snapchat.
Instagram,
Instagram stories, or
everyone.
Yeah.
I mean,
the media use them as well.
yes.
Cool. We have a future. And to build relevance is really to dive into the user needs, to understand what they want, and to do personalization in a good way. It's so many ways to build relevance. I think that we as industry also need to dive into basic needs of our users. And what do I mean with basic needs? I think one of the typical basic needs is everybody have a need to belong. We need to be part of something. And how can we as media houses cater to that? I'm pretty sure it's possible to find answer for those questions. Probably you can find it for me. And then I can be rich Yeah, that's you. This is a typical. I don't know if I've been working with newspapers that want to be young, and they all end up looking like this, like a not that cool old lady. So basically, it doesn't really. What's the word? Build confidence. It doesn't really look truthful, and that's another, because it's when we change ourselves according to the needs. It's also important that we mean it. That it's really, that is not a fake, and that's of course a challenge. This is an example of a small local newspaper in Norway, based far out. It's actually 2 islands in the mid-Norway. Beautiful place. If you have a chance, you should go there. I plan to go kayaking there with my wife this summer. 10,000 people, and that's enough for these guys to build a really, really profitable local media operation. They are highly profitable, and they have like a 90% subscription rate, so people are really, really tapping into it. The editor, this is Björn. He interviewed like 40, 50 readers extensively, and he sent his journalist out to do that. And he did another thing that we often ask managers to do. If you have people that really, really refuse to change, that's the people you should send to interview your users, because they will come back and understand why they need to change. So what they did, they analyzed the results, and then he printed this article. And the top headline there is, "Here is 6 very clear messages you have given me, and this is what I'm going to do with it." So he promised his readers that he are going to act on their signal. It's a great thing to do. Because he kind of, people start to expect stuff from him, they expect change, they feel that he cares, and he builds a relationship with his, and he starts a dialogue with his readers. What are your needs? What is annoying you? How do you want us to change in the future? What do you want us to be? How can I become more important for you? All those questions is questions that he asked his audience. So, I want to talk to you a little bit more. But I'm not going to give you 15 minutes, because when you get 15 minutes, you do a too thorough and detailed job. I'll give you 5 minutes. And I want to discuss with each other, what do we need to ask the users in order to understand their needs? And what do we need to know? How is it possible? What kind of questions do we ask? What do we need to learn? And how would you do it? How is the best way to actually get those answers? Who should we ask? How should we ask it? What should we ask? Could you just think about this? 5 minutes is not long. If you finish before that, we could just start up again. But I just wanted to kind of reflect about this stuff. Can you do this?
Yeah, but our target audience is all of the citizens of the town, right?
I think actually you could choose your own target or audience.
Because that's
Yeah.
much easier.
Yeah, just decide what you want to build, what you want to learn, and what you need to learn.
Про потреби наших людей. Що ми їх маємо спочатку, щоб дізнатися, що їх задачі, на яких платформах, що ми як ми можемо покращити. Зазвичай по такі штуки, там, питання заходять в Інстаграм. Ти ж говориш, ну, такий спосіб, давайте, з якого ви місця, там, скільки ви можете, чи якісь
Hi, jag tror det ringt.
Давайте
Gå fint. Gå fint. Vi därför det ena jobbar inte med så tänker vi se på vad ska vi lansera? Och så ska vi lansera planlägga det och lagsverk. Så och då vill jag ha så här så tänker vi upp med det. Så jag kunde tänka mig att jag alltså kunde förhoppningsvis och då kunde mycket bägge lite på dagarna. Man kunde ta till exempel morgon och så möts vi för exempel eftermiddagsdagen efter. För då jobbar vi och shopping och sånt där.
ліпше так буде чисто Ой, я передумала, що в якому форматі це можна робити в програмі бот, фіксувати, викликати, що
Ja, men det gör det. Så kommer vi planlägga lite, vi kommer planlägga lite samman med varandra. Ja, genialt. För övrigt, tyst amerikaner, det var utroligt
Ja, veldig. Veldig.
Цим не сподобається. Це завжди як зробити.
Tilbake til jeg skal
На івентах розписати, на івентах можна там або фактично, або десь QR-коди ставити, коди писали на івентах групи
Jeg kommer tilbake og så sender jeg invitasjon. Yes. Ja, selvfølgelig. Anders. Ja, men da starter vi starter til lunsj etterpå. Supert. Sure. Let me see. Are you ready, guys? No, we are. You're not ready? Huh? Yeah, that's not a problem.
I'm not sure if we figure out that.
That's not a problem. Decide it. Yeah.
And so, should it be like about like local events where we can like recreate our main idea?
Could be whatever, but in a way. The best way is to have a broad idea of what you want to make. Then dive into it. So we don't have any solutions. We go with questions and you, as you said, ask what you need, what's your pain, what you use today, and you understand kind of what's going on. So that's what was my question. What do you need to know? What should you know? How should you work with it? So that's basically, so you will not finish off, and that's great. Not great, but it's okay, because I think we should start. You know, this is stuff people are using like weeks on, so we can do magic in 5 minutes. Are you ready? No?
Why do I have to keep going into this stuff?
Well, we still should,
Still shooting.
but you didn't have to.
Are you ready? Yeah. I can tell you something different, something totally different right now, but it's for me it's interesting because it's an example of, I told you about like emerging strategy and how you change strategy, and I also started to tell this story actually earlier today. I told you about like how we shifted from making technology for people that wanted to have help to build products, IT products, and how we started to build our own products for the media industry. So that was basically our strategy. Then we started to see that the products we make are not only for newspaper, because the products we make are for connecting communities. It's digital product that connect people in neighborhoods and connect people and make them interact and share knowledge and content, and it's a great thing if local newspaper use them. But we saw that there's other type of clients as well. So we started to reach out to cities with this idea. Wouldn't it be great if you could build a channel, like a media channel, an app where you could send information, personalize information, where you could actually aggregate local content from the neighborhood, and where you could get a notification if there's something happening in the kind of a club you were engaged in inside the app. And the cities, they say yes, sure. And the reason why I started to tell you this was because that was a phone call I got now. So we just got a big project with a municipality in Norway doing exactly this, building an inhabitants service that build local communities together. It will be a channel for local proudness. Will be emphasizing the fact that you belong together in a community. And the interesting thing about this is, how can you, when this service is launched, how will people be able to see the difference between that and the local newspaper? It will basically only be the journalism lacking. And we would really like to onboard the local newspaper to be part of that project. And that is what we do in other projects right now. So we have moved our strategy from working with newspapers to working with municipalities and other that really need to create that kind of citizen stuff. So that was just an example of how strategy can change. So let's say that I was really dead on my, really dedicated to my strategy, and then the municipality called and say, "Hey, we really like your service, and we will want to have that product in our city." And I would say, "No, it's not my strategy. I can't sell to you because it's not there. I'm only exclusively working with newspaper." No one act like that. Okay, what did you guys come up with? I know it was hard. A bit.
Tell us. Short words.
Oh, short?
Yeah, short.
Okay, first of all, we decided that we have to make a social survey. It can be in paper form on the street, because not all citizens use internet, if we talk about pensioners or old people. And it can be in Google Forms. Which question? Main point. In which topics you feel lack of information on local level? How much time you are ready to spend on local media if it would arrive? Also, what is it? What format would be the most comfortable for you? Would it be newspaper format, or a website, or some on channel in one or several social networks, or even radio format? These questions. And after we would have answers, we will do next steps.
Yes, but no. First of all, talk with them first. Because if you do a written survey, in order to it's hard to do the right questions. Of course, you could have open-ended answers so that people could write it, but that's not the strength of using Google Forms and that kind of stuff. The strength of that kind of service is you could send out 2,000 and you could have the answers in numeric forms so that you could treat it in a way. Yeah, to so that you could. But in order to get there, you need to talk with them, because you need input in order to know how to phrase the questions. You need to narrow down on how to ask the questions. That's one thing. I'm not saying that, but I feel that you can you survive me saying no to you. Then, secondly, go deeper into what you need to know. Because what do we need to know? Yes, we can kind of how much time and that kind of stuff, but I think it's be specific. Kind of ask questions like, when you want to keep yourself oriented on what's going on, where do you find that information? And ask them to describe what they do, what services, and sometimes you can ask them to show you your feed, what's there, how does this bring value, what do you miss? And when you start to go into that one, people kind of have digital pains, because it's not possible. If you look back, so much changed during the last 5 years. So many changes. It's impossible to have so much change without losing something that you miss. So okay, what's that? Is it something we can tap on? Is it something that is not, like it's something underserved? Trying to find those kind of small islands of underserved pain, or what you can call it, and try to learn kind of how people behave and why do they do that. And when you do stuff like that, you learn stuff like crazy stuff, like lots of people were kind of the only source of information people had was from a friend that was very active on Facebook, kind of stuff. Okay, is that really good for you? How long will your friend be your only source of local information? Stuff like that. So it's possible to kind of to pick up on things and needs and stuff. So it's good to be specific, and it's good to change, to really have long and open discussions with people like journalists will do it. And that's kind of the interesting thing here, because the approach into this is very much a journalistic approach into questioning. So if you have kind of a guideline, stuff that you want to know, and then when people say something interesting, you ask more about that, and you dig and you dig and you dig, and then there is nuggets of gold in there, useful insights that can actually be transformative for you guys. So that's why I said no. And then you can build, when you have kind of based on your interviews, you can formulate hypotheses, and then you can test those hypotheses. Like, let's say you do findings, seems like there is a huge need for this, and it seems like, and then you do Google Forms or whatever, and you push it out to 10,000, and you see if this is just a freak thing, or if it's actually something that emerged as a need. So that's kind of the method to do it, I think. But other one that have an interesting thing they want to share? Can I ask you guys?
Yes.
And what I just said now was not like the answer written in stone. Yeah.
Okay, so during the discussion, we decided that number one is polls and talking to people, and what we think is effective nowadays is creating events and using digital tools like chatbots, like to make polls interactive, but in the same time make it as easy as possible to journalists to analyze. So yeah, there's few ideas we came up to.
More using social media.
Yeah, and using social media, especially Instagram, because a lot of people spend a lot of time there, and it's like the most popular social media. Yeah.
Yeah, cool, thanks.
My maybe we should ask them what do they expect and would like to achieve from this, from reading these newspapers or maybe some channel in the internet or website.
It's a good question. To kind of what are they searching for, and actually, it's a good thing to just ask what's your expectations, and sometimes you could also have, if you have like, let's say you have a hypothesis of maybe we should build this. Some of the groups here were pointing out to the needs of verticals, like sport verticals. Go deeping into it. Okay, tests. Ask people how do you find content for this now? What do you think about it? What's its quality? Do you trust it? What should we do in order to be trusted? What kind of interaction would you like to have with us? How would you help? Would you support? If I asked you to pay, what did I need to do in order to pay, or need to pay? That kind of stuff. Like, because they have the answers, and if they don't have they don't have the answer, but they have the clues.
And on the other hand, maybe we should ask them of the bad experience.
Sure.
Yeah, and what they didn't like from the old newspapers, maybe.
Yeah, and that's
pains, like to find out what kind of virus it pains. So basically why I'm torturing you with all this stuff is to show you how really simple it is to kind of find insights. But we need to work with the insights, and we need to take that seriously, and we need to ask, we need to really take this and to dive into this. If we don't, and most people don't, they build lots of documents and they fill up lots of forms, but they really don't care about what the user wants to, what their needs are, what their pains are, what their expectations are, what their dreams are, and to really understand why do they behave like this. Are there anyone else that's kind of sits there with something they really want to share? Yes.
I want to add that
Usually people don't really understand what they want. Sometimes it happens when we don't know what to expect from the media. So I think that we just have to make as best, like we are like media specialists, we should do as better as we can.
Yeah, can I just comment on that?
Yes.
I agree. So you cannot ask people describe the perfect media for us and we will make it. That's not possible. That's why you need to dive into needs, pains, problems, how they do it today. Because when you learn really how they use stuff today and what they prefer, why do you go there? Why do you use this? Well, I don't know if you have studied how people use media. I have many times asked them, and I'm shocked every time. It's like, why do you do that? No, I always done that, and like crazy stuff. But then, so you never get the answer. You're quite right. They will never. And if you ask them, you will have meaningless answers. But you get the clues that you can work on. You get kind of the pain points and that kind of stuff, and that's what you're looking for. And then you need new competence as media professionals to create new services, to change accordingly, or to ignore, of course.
I would like to add that maybe the customers don't have the answers for the question, as you said, but when you asked us what do we expect from the newspapers, and we said that we don't know what to achieve, but we would like to change, and we will wait from our department some laws, and we maybe not have answers, but we have thoughts about this, and there are 2 points of view, and I think it is that we can do the trends by ourselves as a media, maybe. And people will read it and they will choose if they don't like or will like it. But it is reaction. Reaction, it is also good, bad or good, but it's...
Yeah, sure. I definitely agree, and the fact is people normally don't ask. They normally do not interact with their audience in this way. And when they fail to do that, it's kind of a betrayal. You betray your readers and customers in many ways. How much time do you have?
It's over.
It's over.
Sorry.
Okay, for tomorrow, I have about 180 slides I would like to show you. Obviously that will not happen. In what way should I change?
Is there anything specific for tomorrow you would like to hear about?
Yeah, I mean, like, I really want to know the answers to these questions which you posted previously in the beginning of the like about storytelling and all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, storytelling. Digital.
I can show you an example of what storytelling is, but as I also said previously, there are no answers. But I can show you kind of how we work with it. I can show you examples of projects and how we kind of worked deeper with it. If you're interested in that, yes. Other thing, is it okay that I ask you questions like I do, or yeah, it's good. Thank you. Many people really hate it, but
maybe.
no, yeah. No, but what else? Yeah, you would.
More tasks.
More tasks.
Yeah,
I planned for more tasks actually. I was considering giving you a huge task that you could work with all night, but I actually, I'm not kidding, but I decided not to.
Work all night on in groups.
Yeah. Yeah, but I decided not to do that. But I would kind of love to ask you to work like an hour tomorrow and to produce something more solid than just thoughts. So I will come back to that. So hopefully we will. But you know, we start 6 o'clock in the morning, right? Because my. I'm kidding.
And the text will wait for you at 5.
Yeah. It will. Okay, I'm finished. You say?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think. Thank you for being here and participating, listening, not falling asleep, all that stuff. It's really, for me, really interesting. Thank you.